Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of VFX Circle. My name's Hayley Miller, I'm the founder of World VFX Day, and today's lovely guest is Alfie Vaughan, VFX Supervisor. Hi Alfie.
Hello.
Welcome. So for those who don't know and didn't watch World VFX Day last year, how dare you, quite frankly. But those who did, you would recognize Alfie if you didn't before, because Alfie was co-host of World VFX Day, where we hosted that from Important Looking Pirates in London last year. And I got to know you whilst I was looking for VFX YouTubers, and I found your channel, Alfie Vaughan, so please subscribe, where Alfie shares a lot of your knowledge and tools and some really awesome sort of insights into VFX and how you do things, which is pretty superb.
Thank you.
So have a look. I think your latest one was on Spider-Man's new trailer, which is pretty cool. So check that out. So today we're going to get to know Alfie a little bit more. We're going to go through your career journey. I've got lots of questions. We're going to talk about tech, woohoo, and AI, all that good stuff, and then a little bit about the industry at the end. So let's get started.
Strap in.
Strap in, guys. So, Alfie, let's start with how you got into your first role. If we can start with your education, that would be lovely first.
Yeah, of course. So when I first started dabbling in visual effects, I was probably 13 or 14, and I was looking up to people on social media that I'd seen, people like Corridor Digital and Freddie Wong and Zach King, people that were kind of taking not Hollywood level VFX, but quite high end stuff compared to what other people were doing and posting it. And I just found it really fascinating. I started watching it, and then I got into the behind the scenes videos they were making where they'd actually show how they did it. And years later, that's actually kind of what I've ended up doing on my channel as well. And then by the time I got to college, I decided that I wanted to actually study visual effects and go down that route. Realized that there weren't really any VFX courses at college. It was kind of more general subjects. So I decided instead of doing anything academic, I would do a level 3 BTEC in creative media production, which is just sort of learning how to use cameras and editing essentially. And then I did a single BTEC in games design as well. And that's where I learned Blender. And then I would apply a lot of the stuff I was learning in the games design class to VFX. So we were learning how to do texturing and 3D modeling and stuff. And then I sort of ported that over, even though it wasn't specifically a visual effects course. And yeah, so I did that for a couple of years. And then when I left college, I ended up applying to work in the visual effects industry, which is eventually how I got to where I am now.
Nice. And you landed a pretty cool role for your first role.
I did. It was great.
Tell us about your time at the mill and how you got that role, how you found it.
I started immediately after I left college. I knew I didn't particularly want to go to university because I felt like the stuff that I'd been doing in my spare time and the things I'd learned at college were enough of a baseline that my skills were already kind of at a level that I didn't necessarily think I would benefit from a university course. Not knocking university at all. I think it's still very good. But I just felt like I just needed someone to give me a chance at a studio and get me in a room, and then I could sort of run with it and make
start earning that money.
Exactly, make the most of the opportunity. So I decided to, rather than go to uni, take a gap year essentially and just start applying for things. And I started before I'd actually finished college, leading up to like the last 6 months before I finished and going into the summer holidays. I was applying for internships and apprenticeships and things, not just in visual effects, just kind of generally in the filmmaking industry, but visual effects was always the end goal. And one of those things that I applied for was a visual effects apprenticeship at all of the big companies in London. So there were, it was organised by a company I think called NextGen, and about 5 or 6 of the big companies like Framestore, DNEG, The Mill, One of Us, they all were sending recruiters to be a part of this scheme, and all of them were going to hire one 2D and one 3D apprentice. And I didn't hear anything for 6 months after I applied, assumed I'd been rejected, didn't hear anything, and then didn't even get like an email to say thank you for your application. So I sort of wondered if I'd even done it properly, or whether I'd like made a mistake on the application process. And then 2 weeks after I finished college in the summer holidays, I got an email to say, can you come to London to do an assessment day for this apprenticeship? So I was really surprised, went up to London, did the assessment day, and the next morning someone rang me from the mill to say, we'd like to offer you the job. So I got in as a 2D apprentice there, and I was there for 2 years and then carried on, and they hired me after I finished the apprenticeship as well. I stayed there for a while and I had an amazing time.
That's awesome. So there's not that many apprenticeships around these days. It'd be lovely if that comes back.
Yeah, it was only the second year the scheme had been running when I did it, so it was quite
Mm.
new then, and they didn't run it for that many years after I finished it because the pandemic kind of kiboshed that a little bit. I think they are kind of back up and running now in some places, but it was kind of gaining traction, and then annoyingly the pandemic kind of killed the momentum a little bit.
Yeah. And the Mill's obviously an awesome studio. What was the culture like there at the time?
It was amazing. I was very aware of it at the time, but even more so now looking back, that I was surrounded by some of the best people in the world at what we do. And there was definitely an attitude of everyone wanted to contribute towards doing the best work. And I also think that we all felt a bit of a responsibility because the Mill had that reputation for being so good. It was like, not only do we have the reputation, but you also have to maintain it. So there was definitely like a drive to just keep doing bigger and better stuff, and everyone just wanted to give everything to the projects. Everyone was really emotionally invested. I think there was the culture and the kind of general ethos was like work hard, have fun, and do really good work.
Yeah, nice. And then did you have an expectation of the industry before you landed your first role, and how did that compare? Were there any surprises?
Not really. I didn't have many contacts or anything, or didn't have any contacts in the industry. So my first experience really was just when I started on my first day as an apprentice.
Yeah.
And I guess I sort of imagined it would all be grumpy old men in a room, in a dark room, and no one would really chat to each other, and it was just very serious, because that's sort of how I always had an image of like a grown-up job in my head, of people like working in banks in suits and working in a call center or something. And it couldn't have been more opposite from that. The office was lovely. We had really cool suites. Everyone was super friendly. A lot of people were like real big characters, and like filled up the room when they walked in, and were very good fun to be in a room with and sit next to and learn from. So whatever my expectations were, I think it kind of was pretty much the polar opposite of what it actually turned out to be like, for the best.
Yeah, well, that's good. So you were there for quite a while. Did you have are there any fave projects that spring to mind? And also, what was the sort of learning curve like? Were there any moments where you're like, oh yes, I'm really getting this now. This really helped me become a better artist?
Favorite projects? There's so many. I always go back to, we did a Harry Potter advert for a game that was released like Pokemon Go, but it was a Harry Potter version. It was called Wizards Unite. And I haven't actually played the game since, so I don't know if it was any good. But Warner Brothers basically produced a 6-minute short film to promote it. And it was just like a live action film with people running around with wands and casting spells. And we had a load of CG creatures in it, like Dementors and the Niffler from the new films. And it was just a dream come true. I grew up reading Harry Potter. That's kind of probably what piqued my interest in terms of getting into visual effects, because I loved the films so much as a kid, and the books. And so to work on something like that was really quite special, and it looked great. I think apart from the Magical Beasts films and or Wonderful Beasts and the Harry Potter films, I think it's the only live action Harry Potter other thing that exists. So it's kind of like the films and then that trailer that we made, and that's it, that Warner Brothers has officially sort of stood behind. So yeah, very, very proud of that piece of work, and I had a really good time working on it.
Nice.
What was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Were there any moments during that time? I mean, must have been a period of where you're obviously learning everything on the go. Was there a time during that 5 years where you were like, oh yeah, I really get this. I feel like this has helped me become a better artist?
I think probably like a year in, I would say, when I was first learning it, it felt very tough, and the learning curve was very steep. Nuke, the software that we use for compositing, is particularly difficult to get your head around. And I think coming from After Effects, which is layer-based, and then Nuke is node-based, so the way that it works is quite different. It took me a while to get my head around it. And for a while, I sort of expected, because I was quite good at Blender and After Effects before, I sort of imagined I'd just breeze through and get it really quickly. But it did take me a couple of months to really get to grips with everything. And then I think at some point it did just click, and I realized I hadn't had to ask anyone for help or watch a tutorial for a few weeks. And then from there, it's like, it just took off. So it did happen quite quickly, that transition from being very green to it just starting to all make sense.
Yeah, nice. So after your time at Mill, you have been at Coffee and TV for the last few years. Can you tell us a bit about how you moved into more of a leadership role, the VFX supervisor role that you are today?
Yeah, I started at Coffee and TV as 2D lead. So when I was at the Mill, I progressed from junior 2D apprentice, and then by the time I left, I was just about to be promoted to a lead, actually. And then, so I joined Coffee and TV, and I'd led a few jobs at the mill before, but not officially. That wasn't my title. You always kind of do the job a bit before you get moved into it to sort of prove you can actually do it. And so when I started, that was like my first time being a proper senior artist. And it was quite daunting. And I had like a little bit of imposter syndrome. I've never really told anyone this before, but I think just because I was only 23, I was quite young, and not many people become leads at that point in their career or at that age. So I always felt like the people that I was working with were older than me. And no, I never had any negative experiences with people not taking me seriously or anything, but I think you're always your own worst critic. And I always, in my own head, was like, I wonder if anyone just thinks I'm like a jumped up kid that's got here by chance or something and doesn't really deserve to be in that position. But over time, like once you have a bit more experience and you have a bit more confidence, those kind of things just fade away. And I think once I got a few jobs under my belt as a lead artist, I just, you start to take it in your stride.
Yeah.
And then quite quickly, because I was I was one of the first nuke artists when I started at Coffee and TV. Before, it was quite predominantly a flame-based company. So nuke is much better for doing big CG jobs. So naturally, I fell into doing quite a lot of the big projects that we were doing that had big CG stuff in. Like we did some full CG Lego commercials and some stuff for Disney. And they were all really good, and there's some work that I'm really proud of. And so quite quickly, I started going on shoots and things as well, even though that wasn't technically part of my job. And that's kind of how I progressed into being a VFX supervisor as well, is just slowly dipping my toes into that element of it and getting more experience on sets, becoming more confident doing that, getting better at building relationships with directors and the clients and making everyone happy. And that's kind of how I ended up where I am today, really.
Yeah, nice. It's doing very well for yourself.
Thank you.
I want to ask a bit more about the role of a VFX supervisor. Has it changed much of late because of all of the technology, AI that's come about? How has that changed from your role, but maybe also the interaction with clients now too?
It's the role of a VFX supervisor is basically to be a problem solver. So in that sense, I actually don't think the role for more senior artists has changed very much. I think it's more the change that we're seeing is more in junior roles, that the stuff that AI can kind of do just as well. Whereas from my perspective, it's just a tool to get to an end result. It's a different way of getting there. So if something comes up on set, rather than just saying, oh, we'll have to spend 2 weeks doing that in CG, now there is this potential to say, well, we have AI, which we could try it in as well. So for my role, really, it's just like another way of solving the puzzle. And I haven't noticed too much of a change, but it is definitely sort of impacting turnaround times and things for better or for worse. And we're sort of just evolving and seeing how it goes with each job and learning from it a lot at the moment as well.
Yeah, I bet. Steep learning curves all around. So we'll talk about your VFX channel. Because that's how I discovered you. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Learn a lot on that. I've definitely learned a lot, even though I'm not an artist. Definitely couldn't do anything that you do.
No, I don't know.
At all, but yeah. You also have your, I can never say it properly, Patreon?
Yes.
Is that how you say it? I always want to say Patron for some reason.
Some people do say it like that.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about that for anyone who hasn't watched anything on your channel yet, and why did you decide to start this?
It's kind of always just been something I did for as long as I can remember. Like I was saying, from the guys that I was inspired by when I started, they were some of the pioneers of social media and taking visual effects to social media. So in the early days, it was basically just replicating that. I was just copying the people I looked up to, making short visual effects films with my friends at college and posting them on YouTube. And they were all terrible. Most of them are deleted or unlisted now. There's some of them you can go back and watch from the early days that are quite funny. But that's kind of what I did for a long time. And then when I started working at the mill, I had this interesting perspective of someone that was now in the industry, and I was learning from the best of the best. And I felt like not a responsibility, but I had this opportunity to pass on the knowledge that had been given to me. And it only seemed right that I should then share it with other people as well. So I started making more educational videos and focusing a bit more on teaching rather than just being like, oh, look at this cool shot that I made. And that's when I started to really gain some traction, and people started to pay attention to the videos I was making more. I had more engagement because people were asking questions and stuff. And that when you get comments on YouTube, that drives engagement as well. And YouTube starts to promote it to more people. So some of my most successful videos have been like nuke tutorials of teaching how to do like 3D camera tracking and stuff. And I think it's because they have a certain longevity that normal videos don't. Like if you make a Spider-Man video, for example, like I just did, it's cool for 2 weeks when the trailer comes out, but then the hype dies down. Whereas there's always new students coming through wanting to learn how to do camera tracking or compositing in Nuke. So they just constantly get views, those videos over time, which I think is nice, and it sort of keeps the momentum rolling.
Yeah.
And more recently, I've just fallen into kind of making my videos are still educational, but I tend to focus now on like making something fun at the start of the video, because that's what I enjoy doing the most. And then it's like, okay, here's this cool thing, and then now I'll spend 10 minutes showing you how I made it. And it seems to be going down really well. I really enjoy making that style of content, and people learn a lot from it. So
yeah,
I don't have any plans to change it for now. Just
Nice.
keep doing that for as long as I can.
Yeah, please do. And now this is not on my official question list, but I'm intrigued, and you don't have to answer. I can cut it out. But money-wise, like, is it, you've got the Patreon, YouTube is fairly okay when you reach a certain amount of subscribers. Is it worth doing from a money perspective as well? You don't have to give us the totals or anything.
No, it's
but
okay.
Do you get, obviously you get a lot of reward out of it for sharing content, but yeah, what's that part of it like?
The ad revenue from YouTube is not that good. My channel probably only makes about 150 quid a month on a good month, and I get probably between 60 and 100,000 views a month, which is quite decent.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be retiring anytime soon on that. But the Patreon thing came around because when I started making the tutorials, people started to ask for the assets from the videos so they could practice on them. And it never really occurred to me before. So I hadn't been doing it for a long time. So I set up the Patreon basically as a way of sharing the project files, and then I just get a little bit of kickback from it. So I made it as cheap as I could. The base tier is $1. And then there's some higher tiers if people want reviews on show reels and things. I do that as well to sort of do a bit of a mentoring scheme. But that's a bit more lucrative, and that I think I probably make like £300 or £400 a month from that. So it's certainly not, it's always going to be a side hustle, I think, unless it kind of really blows up. But it's a nice little, income on the side. It's like a bit of passive income, and it's something that I never really envisioned doing, like, selling digital assets and things. But I'm really glad that I can do that, because a lot of people now send me their show reels and stuff that have like my videos in them that they've reused the assets for and comped them themselves. So it's nice to see it sort of recycled into the community in that way.
Yeah, I love it. More of that. Okay, so moving on to tech, and you might have noticed that we're now joined by Millie Dog. Obviously, there's a lot of tools in the market now, probably way more than when you first started out. Do you have a favorite tool, or which tools do you use the most?
I think the essential one for me is a graphics tablet. Particularly, I have a Wacom at home, and Wacom seems to be the company that everyone in visual effects uses.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by Wacom, but if you want to, please get in touch.
Sorry, cut that out. Unbranded. Because we do so much painting stuff as compositors and visual effects in general, like even if you're texturing 3D models, that pressure sensitivity and the sort of tactile element of pen rather than clicking with a mouse is like a night and day difference. And then more recently, we've got ultra-wide monitors in the office, and I've had an ultra-wide at home for a few years, and that extra screen real estate I find really makes a big difference. You can have like a 1080 or 1920 by 1080 16:9 frame on the left, and then still have space on the right hand side for node graphs and settings and things. And when I'm got the timeline open in Flame, it's like, because it's a wider monitor, you have like a wider timeline, which is just a bit nicer for having a better view of everything in the edit. So going back now to a normal size monitor, I find quite jarring. So ultra wides are kind of essential for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. And are there any tools you wish existed, or any existing tools you wish were slightly different that could help you?
It's a very niche problem, but big part of the job as a lead, a 2D lead anyway, is outsourcing cleanup and roto, or anything that's going to outsourcing really. It can be compositing as well. But the way it works is normally we sort of package up the plate, and then we send a brief, which is normally me going in and like freezing a frame, drawing around it and saying, please roto XYZ. And then you sort of manually copy that into a folder with the plate and name it per the shot name. And you might, for a commercial that's 30 seconds, there might be 15 or 20 shots that need that. So whenever I do a job, I always sort of block out the first 2 days for just doing that whole process. And it's just lots of dragging files over. Oof. And a lot of companies have like their own pipeline version of ways to automate that to some degree. Some have better ones than others, but I always think someone should make a tool that is just like an interface that you can just do it automatically. And I think every company would be really happy to adopt that, because it's such a universal problem. And everywhere that I've worked, it's always a bit of a pain in the arse to do that.
That's crazy, and nothing like that exists.
Not that I'm aware of. I think, like I said, everyone kind of makes their own version, but I think it would be really cool if someone just made like a universal tool that would solve that problem. So
Well,
here's hoping.
Maybe this is your retirement plan.
Maybe. Well, I'm not technical enough, sadly. I would do it myself otherwise. I've made some like very, very rudimentary versions of it, but if someone made like a really nice automated version, it would be chef's kiss.
Yeah, anyone watching, if you're techie,
yeah,
get in touch.
I'll pay.
Yeah,
I'll fund it myself.
I'll do the marketing. We can all retire early. That would be the dream.
It's worth it.
So with all of these new tools, there's obviously so much to talk about there, but there's a lot of talk about these tools enabling democratization. Especially getting those stories out there that couldn't have been told before, where you're waiting for like a lot of money from big execs. Do you think that with these new tools, do you think creativity has been affected by this for artists and non-artists?
Yeah, I think if anything, it's made it more accessible to get to the bottom rung of the ladder, because historically, to do like a trying to think of an example, like my sister will send me a photo of her dog, for example, and I'll use AI to do like a funny video with it. And before AI, I used to do that as a compositor, and I'd spend half an hour making something funny in Nuke. And now you can just sort of prompt that and make a video very, very quickly with just a couple of sentences. So it's almost lowered the barrier for entry. And allowed everyone to sort of have access to that, which I think is kind of interesting. And in that sense, it opens up creativity, because now people don't need like 3 years of experience to be able to make something of that essence. But I also think that the sort of AI slop element of it definitely comes in, and social media is saturated now with people just generating hundreds and hundreds of videos of stuff that's just quite mindless. I don't even know what it is, just AI slop. That's basically what you would call it.
It's the best word for it.
And I think in that sense, it impacts creativity, because people just become numb to it. Like when you used to see a really cool shot, you'd think, oh, I'd wonder what went into that. It must be great. Whereas now people write off stuff that's in filmed as AI. They go like, oh, it must just be ChatGPT's just generated that. And I think there's a sort of lack of understanding of the process, and it's easy to sort of I don't even know what the word would be, but just write something off as being done very quickly, and the process behind it's kind of disrespected a little bit now.
Yeah,
which I think is a shame.
That's what annoys me the most as well, because we've worked so hard to push that VFX is, there's so many humans behind it. And I just think that with the downside to AI now is that, members of the public that don't know any better, or people that don't know any better, are just going to think that even more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a shame, but I think that the ceiling is lower as well, which is the main thing that annoys me about it, because it's quite easy to make the videos, but then you look at it closely and it is just kind of nonsense. And there's like stuff going on in the background, and people have 6 fingers and things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the barrier for entry is lower, but then the ceiling is like just slightly above that as well.
Yeah.
No one's really making like really creative stuff with it that I've seen. It's all just kind of mindless nonsense.
Yes. And you mentioned about clients and the use of AI. I think you mentioned earlier to me before we got online, but how clients are wanting separate bids now.
Yes.
For AI and traditional. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the process for visual effects normally is, if a director or an agency comes to you and they have a script, then the next part of that process is a creative director or a visual effects supervisor or someone will essentially sit down and break it down into, okay, there's 15 shots and it's going to require 6 days of CG for this one and 2 days of compositing, blah, blah, blah. And that's how we would quote jobs out, is you work out how long it's going to take, how many people you need, how much it's going to cost, and give that back. Now we're being asked to do sort of parallel quotes of like, okay, can you quote for doing this with the normal CG approach and also give us a quote for the AI approach? And inevitably, the AI approach is usually cheaper and quicker because it requires less resources, and you can get to finished picture quicker. But the problem that we're finding is that clients generally obviously will go for the quicker route, and also because it's cheaper and more cost effective, but then they will still want the flexibility of the traditional VFX process. And so communicating the fact that when you're using generative tools, you can't necessarily go back and tweak stuff. So we have to say, like, okay, this animation is now locked, and we're going to then work on the look dev of whatever a character it might be or something. And they'll quite often say, yeah, that's fine. And then we'll get to the last week of the job and they'll say, can we actually change that? And the problem is, when you roll the dice on the AI roulette wheel, you don't always get the same thing back. So they might be really happy with the animation, then you change the character and suddenly the animation is different. And with traditional techniques, like if you were animating that in Maya, you would just version up the scene or something, and whatever changes you make would sort of filter through the pipeline and everything would stay the same. And that's kind of how things have been done for a long time. The AI way is much more, like I said, it's a kind of a dice roll, and clients kind of haven't really clocked on to the fact yet. And I think they are slowly learning. We're trying to educate them that with the route of going a bit cheaper and a bit quicker and a bit more cost effective, you're sacrificing a little bit of quality and control. And that's kind of the challenge that we're facing at the moment, is just sort of explaining that and getting around those problems.
Yeah, sounds like a headache.
Mm-hmm.
So you cover quite a few tools as well on your channels, just to end this section on tech and tools.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any new tools on the block that have excited you the most and allowed you to create more with less?
Yeah, there's been some really good advancements recently. I've been using Magic Mask in DaVinci Resolve a lot, which is basically where you can just click on something you want and it will make a matte for it. It's had that tool for ages, but it's got really very, very good. I think recently it's been AI accelerated. And so I use it a lot for roto now, particularly for my own stuff at home, not at work, 'cause it's not really like good enough for final quality in like a broadcast sense. But for stuff I'm doing on YouTube, it's actually really serviceable. And so it saves me a lot of time, because I don't want to be sat down drawing around myself for hours in my bedroom on a Saturday evening. What else do I use? There's some like really good grading tools in Resolve as well that I use now. Foundry's just released Smart Roto, which is like a way of tracking the roto shapes onto footage, and it kind of helps you out and speeds up that process. I haven't actually tried it out yet, but I've seen some videos and it looks really good. There's some really interesting stuff coming out.
Yeah.
It's just it's nice because they're sort of aimed at studios a lot of the time, but also when that stuff trickles down to individual artists, it just enables me to do more on my own as one person. Whereas 5 or 10 years ago, some of the stuff I do in my bedroom now would have taken a whole team of people, which is really exciting. It enables small creators to do cool stuff.
Yeah, always something to learn in this world, wonderful world of VFX. So we're moving more into industry-wide type questions now. And you've been largely unaffected. Well, probably completely unaffected, actually.
Thankfully.
Thankfully. So you're one of the lucky ones. And reflecting on even this time last year, I've certainly been hearing more positive stories. Obviously, we're still getting studios, news of studio closures, which is absolutely heartbreaking. But on the whole, I feel like the industry is a bit more upbeat and positive compared to last year, depending on who you talk to. But it's still obviously a challenging time, probably will be for a little while.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that shift of the industry right now? Because you've been in the industry for about 9 years,
9 years
professionally. Has the last few years really been the craziest?
Yeah, I think that at the moment there's been a lot more studios closing down than we've seen historically. And like we were talking about earlier before we started rolling, companies do kind of rise and fall. And there have been titans of the industry before the mill and stuff when I was there that were like the visual effects studio, and then they kind of come and go, and it spawns a load of other places that start up and kind of rise through the ranks. So it is natural, and I think that is just an evolution of businesses, big and small, that come and go. But the work-wise, the last couple of years have been pretty much the same. Maybe a little bit of slowdown, particularly around the writers' strike and everything that was happening in Hollywood. But like we say, because I work in commercials, it's a little bit more sheltered from that, because you're less beholden to what the kind of general industry is doing, because people are always making commercials and want to promote stuff. Whereas when people weren't writing scripts and things, obviously films weren't getting shot, and that has a much longer knock-on because it takes 9 months to shoot something, and then even longer for it to filter through to edit and VFX departments and stuff. So
yeah.
I'm quite grateful in that sense that I've been able to keep busy, and the places that I've worked have been able to keep the doors open and stuff.
Yeah,
but
of course.
It's certainly been challenging for some places.
Yeah. The world of commercial though is changing a lot as well, though, isn't it? With the reduction of advertising spend and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
it's great that you've still been able to be super busy.
Yeah, I think more senior artists are a little bit more sheltered from it as well, because the role is a bit more essential, whereas juniors, I think, struggle a little bit more to find roles now because companies just want you to be really solid right out the gate. Whereas obviously when you're starting, you need that kind of hand holding and training. And I think there's less of like an attitude of wanting to bring people up now, whereas it used to be, training was a big part of the culture of companies, and now places are just looking to do things quickly and cheaply as possible, which is kind of sad. But there are still places that are very forward thinking and sort of value that culture as well. I don't want to be too much of a downer about it.
No, yeah, people are still trying their best, but obviously all this takes money, and when you're trying to survive as a studio,
Exactly,
these
yeah.
things are pushed down even more. But there's a lot of, I should give some shout outs. There's lots of organizations that specialize in mentorship. Access VFX, as we're in the UK, got to give them a big shout out, and they have global mentorship schemes, so definitely check them out. They're awesome. In terms of like the industry and everything that's been happening, has anything particularly surprised or shocked you that's happened?
I think the places recently have gone down in terms of commercial studios. Number 8 and Absolute are a couple of ones that are very recent, sort of still fresh in the memory, and it always kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere. But I guess it's quite a harsh reminder that you never really know what's going on behind closed doors. And even when places seem like they might be doing quite well and everyone's quite happy, if the work is not there, that's essentially what you need to keep the lights on. So some places just fall by the wayside, which is really sad.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone's watching this and looking for work or just been let go, there are some resources on the World VFX Day website, including a job board that scrapes lots of different job boards, courtesy of VFX Engine, that's directly plugged into the World VFX Day website. So please check that out. And there's some support links on there as well. So you mentioned, graduates, obviously, and those starting in the industry, they are having a particularly tough time compared to when you started in the industry.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you could advise for them, given that you're a VFX supervisor now? I'm sure you look at a lot of reels.
I do, yeah, lots of them. I think more than ever now, it's not just about having a good show reel. And historically, if you graduated from a good uni, you had a good reel, the uni quite often will have connections with studios, and studios, when they're doing a big project, will actually go to unis and look for new upcoming talent to hire them. And that was quite an easy way, well, not an easy way, but you could kind of rely on that being quite a sure, fast way of getting into the industry. If you had a good reel and came from a good uni, it's pretty much guaranteed you were going to find somewhere. Whereas now, a lot more I hear from recruiters that it's more about just being like a really good person, like coming across well, being easy to work with, having good communication, even just like being fun to be in a room with. When you're interviewing, if you get a chance to interview in person, the way you come across just face to face over a table matters just as much as whether you're a good compositor or 3D artist or whatever it is you're trying to get into. And I think that you have to make the most of opportunities when they come up and just kind of make it happen for yourself. No one's going to hand you a job in the industry anymore. It's never really been like that, but I'd say even more so in the last couple of years. I remember I went to a talk at a university. I won't say which one it is, but I went into a room full of students and did like a half an hour presentation. And then at the end of it, what the tutor said, would anyone like Alfie to look at your work or have a chat? And it was just like tumbleweed silence.
Oh, really?
And I kind of thought in that moment, like when I was their age, or when I was younger, actually, I was the same age as the people that were in the room. But when I was in that position, trying to get into the industry, I would have bitten someone's hand off to like have a chat with a VFX supervisor or someone and get them to look at my work and get some advice from them.
Yeah.
And I just thought, in that moment, you need to really grasp the opportunity when it's in front of you. And I think the people that, not specifically in that room, but even if you're quite, an anxious person or a bit socially, what's the word for it? There's a phrase for it, I can't remember. Socially awkward.
Yeah.
Where you struggle to talk to people. It can be very challenging, but I really think that practicing that skill is very important because it is a big part of how you land jobs now. It is very much a people-led industry. And especially if you're not trying to become an artist, you want to be a producer, even more so. So that's a real important skill, and I'd say working on that and just making sure that you come across really well is just as important as having good skills these days.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And yeah, you mentioned before about having imposter syndrome. I think we can have that at any time of our life, and especially in our sort of career journey. I've certainly had it a lot. And, you know, I've been to talks at conferences with creative directors of massive studios, still saying that they have imposter syndrome.
A lot of people do.
Sometimes it just never leaves you. And I think as well with some graduates coming out of uni post-COVID, when a lot of their interactions were online, I think that kind of,
you can tell the difference.
Yeah. So luckily our industry is so supportive and amazing. We have in-person events happening all over, hopefully in one of your cities as well. I know they're usually in the bigger cities, but if they don't exist, then create your own, because you'll definitely find your tribe. And just practice those soft skills. Definitely something that helps with the confidence for sure. So very good advice there. We're coming up to the end. Okay. So gonna go back to AI.
My favorite topic.
Yeah. And obviously there's a huge push for AI. I mean, machine learning's been around for a very long time, but the tech bros are pushing out AI. Is it just a tool, or is it actually going to take people's jobs? You mentioned the sort of junior roles, that some tools are taking over part of those tasks.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Is it going to permanently take part of traditional VFX?
I hope not. I mean, my prediction, and also kind of what I hope happens, is that there will be a renaissance at some point where people just get sick of the AI slop like we're talking about and start to crave more crafted stuff that's made, you know, bespoke by actual artists with years of experience in the industry. Similar to the way that, you know, handmade furniture is more expensive now rather than going to IKEA, because there's a lot of love and experience that's gone into it, and that's what makes it, you know, tangibly valuable. I think the VFX industry is going to come around to that, and entertainment in general, because people at the moment it's kind of new and exciting, and people can make videos of their dog like floating around in space and stuff with a couple of prompts, and it is amusing, but I think the novelty of that will wear off. And I also think that the rapid progression of technology is going to start to taper off a little bit as well. We're already sort of seeing it. I don't know if people are probably familiar with the Will Smith eating spaghetti thing. And you can see, like, from where it was like 3 years ago, where it's just absolute gobbledygook, and there's kind of like spaghetti going through his head and all sorts, and then fast forward a couple of years and it's almost photorealistic. The diminishing returns now is getting more and more apparent, and I think we are starting to plateau in terms of what the technology is capable of. So I think once that kind of really, the novelty wears off, I'm sort of hoping that we'll go all the way back to doing things the traditional way, and that's what ultimately is what people are employed to do as artists. And there's that famous saying, I want AI to do the dishes for me while I'm doing art and writing, not the other way around. So I think that's completely true. It's like, what's the point of it if it just takes away all the stuff that people enjoy doing?
Exactly.
Like, it's meant to speed up our lives so that we have more freedom to do the stuff we want to do, not be taking away all the creativity stuff that makes us human beings.
Yeah, stop wasting our time. AI, if you're listening, get back in your lane. Just do the things that we don't want to do, please. Thank you very much. What are your hopes for the future of our industry? Very broad question. Could be any specific section or just overall.
I just hope that the volume of work increases to sort of where it was a few years ago, and that there are more openings again for junior roles, and companies are, you know, there's less turbulence in terms of the job market, and people can be a bit more secure. It's such a wonderful industry to work in, and I've enjoyed every moment of it from like the whole of the 9 years, and it would be great to just be able to have more people experience that, and people that want to get into it, and, you know, like we're saying, more junior positions and stuff, and graduate positions become more available as opposed to declining a bit, which they are at the moment. But yeah, I think it is very, very cool, and it's not going in a bad direction at the moment, but it'd be nice if the work increased and stuff, and everyone just felt a bit more secure in general.
Yes.
We can carry
Fingers
on
crossed.
as we are.
Yes, let's keep going. Well, thank you for all of that. And anyone watching, and if you have a burning question for Alfie, leave it in the comments. I'm sure you can pop
I'll be
back
there
into the comments to answer those.
Be loitering.
And then to finish, we've got a little special announcement, because like I mentioned at the start, Alfie co-hosted World VFX Day with me last year. And look who's back. Alfie's back. He's going to be co-hosting with me again for World VFX Day 2026 on the 8th of December. So please put it in your diary. It's going to be all day again with lots of live talks, but people joining us online as well from around the world, lots of different topics. So yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me again.
Obviously, it wasn't that bad last time.
No, second time's the charm.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, expect more good things from us, and we will see you very soon. Thanks, Alfie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.